Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Keep It Simple podcast. If you're joining us here, you have caught episode 12, and this is one I've been looking forward to. I say that almost every episode, but it doesn't make it any less true. So today we have Rev. So Rev is a man of legend. So many of you have seen him and his wife Katie, their dog Ollie, even on our feed. Many of you have heard me reference Rev, whether it be in talks and teachings or just in passing. And so I'm proud that you all realize now that he is real, that he exists. Trevor Ward is an incredible person. He is a man of many hats. He is a pastor, also an incredible worship leader, a husband, a father, a friend, just an incredible guy all the way around. And Rev, welcome to the podcast.
Well, hey, Ben, thanks for having me on. And thanks, everybody, for listening and tuning in. I'm kind of nervous, if I'm going to be completely honest, because this whole thing is like, we're not editing this thing. And so I got to make sure I say the right words, make sure I don't mess up. But just going to try to relax a little bit, get into the groove.
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like you hyped me up a little bit too much. I'm not that great. But I do love spending time with you, Ben. So this is kind of a cool way to do that since you live so far away, and excited to have a conversation with you this evening.
Yeah. And that, so our paths cross through Brooke, Brooke's your cousin, Brooke Kitchens. And so for those of you that have watched or listened to the podcast a few episodes ago, Brooke was on. And so our paths crossed. We actually started seminary at the same time. You were in Macon at Mulberry United Methodist Church, and I was in Warner Robins first. And Brooke knew that you were starting seminary, and I was starting seminary both at Asbury. And she was like, "Hey, you all could travel to intensives together." And little did I know that literally that connection was going to be the beginning of what will end up being a lifelong friendship. What was your side of the tracks on that? What were those first? What were those? what were those first encounters? That first trip to Orlando for sure, but just kind of that launch or beginning of our relationship. Let's start there.
Yeah, so I guess the Lord wanted us to be friends because He put us together. Definitely used Brooke in that relationship. And then Asbury and going to seminary and that whole thing, like you said. But I mean, honestly, I couldn't have expected anything for how our friendship came to be, and I'm just so grateful. First off, because I've learned a lot from you and just kind of watching you in life and in ministry, and you've really been an encouragement to me, especially in just this particular season of my life and in the Lord. And so, but man, you and we couldn't be more different. And that's one of the things that Brooke kept saying, like, I can't imagine these two going on a trip together and spending like time together. We went down and we took your camper. And so we knew pretty much nothing about each other. And we're like, we're going to be hanging out for a whole week, driving down to Orlando, several hours. We ran out of gas on the side of the road on the interstate.
Yes,
so
I
mean, our whole thing was starting off with adventure, our whole relationship, our whole friendship. And so since then, I'd say it's been, we've just had so many awesome, just times together, quality times in ministry, times to to sow into other people relationally,
Yeah, man.
and just do that together, and just to see you the way that you do that, has just always been just it just opened my mind up, my eyes up to see how you can love intentionally and love with authenticity. And but yeah, that's a crazy trip. We just hung out in a camper,
And it's not a
like
large
just
camper. It's a small
no,
camper.
no, and you just, you were like, this guy's weird, this guy's got some quirks, and I was like, this guy's weird, he's got some quirks, but man, I loved it. I loved the whole thing. I don't know why. It was just, it
Yes.
worked somehow.
And Brooke, leading up to that, she said, I can't imagine. It's the same thing Mindy said about, she was wanting me to meet Ed, her brother-in-law, and Mindy said the same thing about me and Ed that Brooke said about you and me, is I can't make up my mind if you're going to love each other or hate each other, and we were in that camper and we bonded. So you somehow, a week of my life I'll never get back, talked me into watching Stranger Things. And if you remember kind of the trade-off, so I was watching hunting videos on YouTube, and your choice was Stranger Things, and so we alternated back and forth. That week I was training for an Ironman. Do you remember that little KOA campground pool? I mean, it couldn't have been 15 yards, you think, maybe?
Oh yeah. You were deep in the training period for that.
But you were all
yeah.
in. You ran with me. You swam with me.
Yeah.
You were, I mean, every step of the way, you were. What I remember about that tiny little pool is it couldn't have been 15 yards long, maybe 20 yards. And how many times you got to swim back and forth to get 2,600 yards or whatever the.
Yeah, you did at least 2,000 laps. Or
I don't
like
know.
Like,
It was crazy, but you were in. And the other thing that I remember about that, other than you making me late, was on the way home. So we had watched some hunting shows, and on the way home, you're in the passenger seat. I'm just driving, right? And you're quiet, which is unusual. And because we talk, right? We're always talking and cutting up, and you're quiet. And every so often, you would ask me this question. You'd be like, hey, Ben, what shoots a .308 caliber, a rifle or a shotgun? And I'm like, a rifle? You're like, okay. I keep driving, just quiet. A little bit later, another question. Little did I know you were taking your hunter safety certification in the truck. You remember that? On the way back, you're like, I've watched enough hunting videos. I'm ready to hunt. I'm ready to hunt something.
yeah, I got the bug, and I'd always wanted to take the hunter safety course so I could legally hunt.
Yes.
I think I'd illegally hunted at some point.
Okay.
I never shot a deer. I never shot an animal up to that point, but I'd gone out into the woods and
Yes.
And just sat and been out there. But that was when I was younger, like younger than 18 and that sort of thing. And so, dude, you're just jogging my whole memory. That's hilarious.
So awesome.
So that's when it started. Yeah. And since then I've gone hunting with you and several other times with other folks. And it's been a really cool way to connect with people. And yeah, I've enjoyed it.
So we talk about authentic community, which is what the project really is all about. And from that tiny camper, watching alternating Stranger Things, such a weird show.
It's gotten weirder.
Has it? It's alternating Stranger Things and hunting shows, and but then from that, hunting together. And you remember the night you brought that rancid, the fermented cabbage or whatever it was. So there's this super sketch Korean restaurant, and does it have a name?
I don't think they're open anymore.
Rightfully so.
It was called Choi's. I think they were in it was a restaurant inside of a Asian market.
Yes.
In Warner Robins.
Yes, it was. And so Rev and our deer hunting, we're camping in that same camper out at the lease. And little do I know that you've got this to-go box of this fermented what's it called?
It's called it's called kimchi.
Kimchi. And all I know is it smelt like damn it. It smelt straight up like damn it. And I didn't know you had it. And so deer hunting, right? So scent is important. And all of our
Sure.
camouflage is hanging inside the camper. And so I'm outside with Jeff and them by the fire. And unbeknownst to me, you go in and warm up your fermented cabbage in the microwave in the camper.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm somewhat inexperienced at this point in my
Yes.
hunting career.
No, it's not a knock.
So
It's just looking back. I walk in. I can outside the door, ever how many yards away from the camper, I can smell this stuff.
yeah. And that's also when I realized that you were a super smeller somehow or another. Like
Yeah, yeah,
your
that's true.
nose, nostril sense of smell is like just on a whole nother level. And
Yeah,
I think mine's like negative. I don't get a lot of sense from my nose.
yeah.
Call it allergies. I don't know, but you hated that smell, and you were just it was just completely just we were
It
just undone,
it was in our
but by
clothes.
that smell.
It was in our clothes. The next
But
morning,
I didn't smell it.
the next morning we're sitting in a blind, and I can still smell it. Anyway,
That's impressive.
for
That's impressive.
for me, that is a fond memory. I mean, at the time, agitated, yes, but now I look back, and that's a snapshot of our relationship. Another fond memory. Remember when we were doing the hall,
Yeah.
and then we had like the music for the movement concerts and stuff.
Hmm.
That's when
You gonna
I
say Pigpen?
no, gosh, no, I forgot about
Okay.
him, dude. The drummer.
He's having a kid.
What? I forgot all
Yeah.
about him. I forgot about Pigpen.
Sidetracked.
God
Yeah.
bless Pigpen. That's the first time that I realized. So we were in Wilmore one time at Asbury, and there was an Avett Brothers song on the radio, and because we both love Avett, and you were cutting up. You were trying to be funny, like sing like a hillbilly and this twang, and you weren't being for real. And I realized in that moment, like, even when you're playing, even when you're being silly, you're on perfect pitch. Brooke's the same way. Brooke does the same thing. And that was the first time I was like, this dude is crazy gifted. And then during those concerts, in between songs, playing songs, there was like spontaneous worship where you were just on a keyboard just worshiping. And that I remember standing in Carter Hall. I think y'all were actually sound checking maybe. Everybody had kind of gotten their stuff done, and you're just up there worshiping. And I'm standing in the back of the room at the soundboard trying to mix, and I'm like, whoa. What a gift. The next time I saw that is when we were on that joint ski trip. Remember your group and Brooks' group and Charity's group and our group, the four, and we were in that local church that allowed us to use their sanctuary.
Yeah. That was great.
And that night you did
Great trip.
the same thing. Just spontaneous worship, and ushered the Spirit of God into that room. Such a gift. Are you leading worship now? Like, where are you now? What are you doing now? What are your roles? Are you leading worship, preaching, teaching? What are you doing? Where are you?
Yeah. So I'm in Tifton, Georgia right now. We've been here for like 2.5 years serving in ministry. Kind of came here. The role is associate pastor, and what that looks like here, it's a little bit of your typical associate pastor stuff, supporting the senior pastor, pastoral care visits with shut-ins, with folks in the hospital. But where you might typically see an associate pastor rotating and preaching and teaching a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe doing more like on the backside, where like maybe with small groups and Sunday school teaching, those sorts of things. I preach every week in our contemporary service,
Wow.
um, and that service is it's been around for a long time, but it's seen a lot of different leadership styles and gone through a lot of different seasons with who's been here in the church and serving, and what worship and the music side of it looks like, and what the preaching teaching side of it looks like. So I would say I've really been able to I guess that's kind of like one of my areas where I invest a lot of my time
Hmm.
and my energy and focus here. And I help do a lot of other teaching, like small groups. And I like the cool thing about this church is in our staff is everybody's kind of working and meshing together. And it's been a while to get us to that place, but I like to be a part of children's ministry and youth ministry as much as I
Hmm.
can, and just kind of see those different generations and really invest in families, and just get to kind of be in a little bit of everywhere throughout the church, and that really just gives me a lot of energy. But yeah, with the as far as the music side of things goes, one of the cool things about my role is that we don't have a paid worship leader
Okay.
for our contemporary service. Like for our traditional services, which are a little bit more the makeup of our church, we have a full-time music director for that, but we don't have any paid musicians or anybody part-time, full-time, nothing like
Hmm.
that. So I've gotten to invest really heavily on the music side of our contemporary worship, and um, we thankfully do have some volunteer worship leaders, musicians, but it's really laid back. It's acoustic. Um, we have a cajon, we have a guitar, acoustic guitar. Sometimes we have keys. We have a couple of singers.
Wow.
This, so and well, that's been one of the draws for some of the people who are looking for contemporary worship but don't want all the flash. They
Hmm.
don't want the smoke
Right.
machines and the
Right.
lights. You know what I'm
Yes, I
saying?
do.
And that's been really cool for some of those who are sort of like, it's not a concert. We're not trying to go to a concert. We're just trying to. It's honestly, it kind of embodies a simplified mindset or simplified
Yeah.
idea around what worship can look like. And, it's been really, really cool just to kind of settle into that new role, settle into that space. And it's really just a good time of fellowship and worship on Sunday mornings. But I get to, um, so if one of our volunteer worship leaders are out of town, I'll just lead worship,
Wow.
and I'll get to be re-energized by just something I love doing. And that's been really cool just to do that. I kind of switch hats in the middle of the service and then
That's was
preach.
my question. So,
Um,
do you lead worship and teach?
yeah. So I'll
Wow.
do, maybe if I'm on the worship team and there's a full set, I'll just be playing keys and kind of adding
Hmm.
to it, and just getting to be up there and enjoy that time and that moment. Maybe just lead one song, or maybe just let them lead, but kind of just harmonize or whatever, and just kind of
Hmm.
chill. But yeah, so I just mostly um, let them do that. But if one of them's gone or something like that, I'll uh, I'll step in and do that. But one of the other cool things about Tifton, it's a small town feel, but it's a larger town. It's got a couple different college campuses on it. UGA has a campus here, ABAC, Abraham Baldwin, um, uh, Agricultural College. There,
That's where Stacy graduated. Stacy graduated from there.
yes,
It's where we
I
met
think
in
I
Tifton.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, but it's cool because yes, we're in the Bible Belt, but some of the some of the churches just have I feel like a genuine desire for unity and to come together and see our community transformed through Jesus, through the love of Jesus. And there's some really strong uh, followers of Christ down here, and that's been really one of the cool parts of community down here that I've got to experience. Um, but yeah, just I've had the opportunity to lead worship in some more like joint worship nights where multiple churches have come together to lead worship, or to
Sweet.
worship the Lord together. So that's been really cool to see a community of people and a community of believers
Hmm.
that are willing to kind of let down their denominational walls, maybe their their church, kind of those groups that they're in, those cliques and that sort of thing, and just kind of come together and just worship the
Yeah,
Lord. And
didn't you all have a gigantic joint deal on the football field at Tift County High School? Am I getting that right? Did I see that?
yeah, so we did a Good Friday service, and that was
Okay.
spearheaded by one of the local churches, a larger Baptist church, but they were really adamant about bringing all the voices in and all the different church leaders, pastors, and musicians, and so that was really, really awesome. Mark Rick came down and spoke and
Wow.
shared his testimony, and yeah, we had a really great crowd. And the cool thing is, like, it was one of those things, the weather is terrible. Yeah, I remember I was asking you to pray for the weather for the
Yes.
Lord to just hold off. And man, he gave us this amazing lightning show in the background of the whole worship. And it
Wow.
was beautiful, but not a speck of rain hardly touched the stadium and all that we were doing there. And it was like basically moving all around us, but it wasn't coming directly on us. And so we had a good show, a good turnout, and we worshiped God on that Good Friday, on that football camp, on that football stadium, and in that football stadium.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have the privilege to know your story, but it's been a winding, twisting road, right? So how? Let's just kind of talk about how you got to where you are, and you can go back. You can start wherever you like in your story, whatever it is you'd like to share. But I know most, if not all, I know most of your story, but so many people will not. So, at what point did you feel a call on your life? What was it like discerning that call? The different ages and phases and stages up until now. Let's talk through that a little bit, and the importance of community in those ages and stages and phases.
Yeah. So one of the things, if we're talking about like calling and that sort of thing, I would say early on, I I was really drawn to music early on in my life. I mean, second grade, I started doing like piano, keyboard lessons, and then sixth grade, I took up the guitar. Me and my cousin were really close, and her name was Hope, and she was really into the guitar and singing, and so I kind of naturally just got into it for what she was doing and at the time, and we would write songs. Some of them were, well, they were all terrible. I mean, at least mine were. They were pretty cringy when I go back and listen to them, but we were doing something with music. We were being creative, and so it was really kind of in that season, middle school, high school, that I started leading worship and was getting opportunities to play music in church. And I would say that's where that calling started to begin to stir and form. And people, kind of like what you have said, people have said similar things to me in that were just affirmations for how the Lord was kind of using me and how he had given me a particular set of gifts that to some degree, like, I was kind of even unaware of. Like, you're kind of aware of what you think is going on, but you're not really aware of how it's affecting other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, people would come and share, how the Lord maybe used me in this way or that way. And so I started really feeling that sense of calling and in those early kind of high school days. And then I dated a girl. I kind of always kind of reference a relationship in high school in particular. Her name was Mary Claire, and her family was very what I consider to kind of be like the ideal family. So my family, my parents were divorced, and it just felt a little like our home was broken in so many different ways, and didn't have that consistency growing up. And she seemed to have that, and her family seemed to really be close and bonded, and they did everything together. They went to church, and they really prioritized their relationship with the Lord, and they talked about the Lord, and they were it seemed like they were pursuing the Lord, and they had that strong relationship with him, and her especially. And so she was really a big part of me kind of taking my relationship with the Lord to that next level, taking it more seriously in high school. And then when that relationship kind of fizzled out, um, I realized that I was kind of depending on her in a way to kind of
Mm-hmm.
satiate, like, I guess, uh, maybe through her, I felt like I was closer to the Lord. So then it was like a whole new level of me taking an even greater ownership of following after him. And so that was in high school. But anyway, so I got involved with the House of Prayer in Macon, and it was just
Oh
this
yeah.
really small, organic uh, group of people. Like, they were just pursuing the Lord, worshiping
Mm-hmm.
for hours and hours, and praying for the city, praying for the church, praying for unbelievers. And um, it was really strange just how when I started pursuing the Lord on my own, he got me there. He got me to that community in
Mm-hmm.
particular, and he was downloading things into my spiritual DNA in that particular place. And it was actually literally a house where people would worship, but it was a greenhouse.
Oh
And
yeah.
so if you think about that, just like a greenhouse, like gardening and things like that, there was some exponential growth happening in that season in particular, and
And we talked about that at one
especially when it
point.
came to worship.
The chances of our paths crossing then are probably pretty high because I was in and out of that
Yeah.
house praying probably about that time. The difference in age between us, and that's when I'd scaled out of rodeo or down and was off the road full time. And through Ted McCullough, got turned on to the House of Prayer and started going and spending time there. So we talked through that at some point, but the greenhouse was epic.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's crazy to think about how the Lord had us at similar places, and there were a lot of people in and out of the greenhouse and during that time, and I was just a little teenager, kind of just, I saw
Yes.
some of the core people that were there, um, and got connected with some of them. But uh, the Lord has His own timing. But it's cool to think about how we were worshiping in a similar environment in that same place.
Hmm.
But you were in a totally different season of life, and
Yeah.
I was too. But um, yeah, so I would just say in those seasons, really, that's where my call began to stir, and call to ministry. And it was kind of like that. Um, I guess that verse where I'm probably gonna botch it. I'm terrible with just referencing scripture and what scripture is, but it's like um, David. I'm thinking of like a Psalm of David, and uh, and just like his desire, his longing to be in the house of the Lord. And so I always felt like that connection to being with God in ministry, to being called to ministry, uh, to be to being connected deeply to the church and doing something in ministry. It just always felt like, you know, I would never be satisfied outside of that.
Hmm.
Outside of that. Position, in clarifying that call over time, it's still this ongoing thing for me personally,
Hmm.
because um, part of clarifying that call for me has been stepping out in faith, and doing things that you may not be necessarily skilled at, but
Hmm.
and you may be scared of at times, but just stepping into it and letting the Lord, show you and direct you and use you. Um, that's kind of been my journey personally. But I got into some campus ministry. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that too. You
Sure.
mentioned that, but
Yeah.
but I was leading worship kind of throughout college and throughout. So really, and then post college, I got involved in UGA Wesley Foundation, and I'd say that was like a really big catalyst and greenhouse in my faith. And that community in particular was the absolute most encouraging community that I've ever experienced.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was because that's what I needed in that season,
Mm-hmm.
and because I had kind of come off of this really rocky, low place, valley season, that I'd experienced some just making some terrible decisions in college, and for about a year or so, I just felt just very far off from the Lord, um, and so it was honestly, it felt like two extremes
Mm-hmm.
for me to go from that low place. And then I was praying and seeking the Lord and asking Him, and really just ready to get out of running from the Lord and running to the Lord. Um, and so He led me to UJ Wesley Foundation, and I was at Georgia College for my undergrad in Milledgeville, and so Athens was about an hour and a half from my hometown in Gray. But so I just decided, I heard about this internship, and you can intern and work for the campus ministry, and it was a very large campus ministry. They they see about 1,000 to, I mean, in some of the services, I know that they were seeing kind of later around my time upwards of 1,200, maybe 1,400 people.
Amen, man.
And so, I mean, it was a ton of people. So they needed a lot of help to
Mm-hmm.
do the kind of ministry they were wanting to do. And so we raised support, and we were basically missionaries on the campus. And when we we commit to at least 1 year at a time for a school year, like, fall and spring semester.
Mm-hmm.
And our training happens right there before the fall semester kicks off. And then we get going, we disciple students one-on-one, and then we're small group leaders as well. But I interned with the worship staff, so I helped lead worship in different settings. And mostly I was doing kind of like what my DNA, my spiritual DNA, if you want to call it that, like connected most to. So we would have 7:30 Tuesday morning prayer meetings. I would lead worship for that. And then we'd have ministry sets after our main worship set, where there were, like the 1,000 to 1,200 students or so. And then there would be a message. And so we would, after the message, there'd be like an altar call, and then we'd have ministry team where there'd be like interns and other staff members that would pray with students if there was like a specific need,
Mm-hmm.
that, like an altar call, that they would say, if you're struggling with this thing, come get prayer. And so during that time, they'd have worship music we were playing, but it was called ministry set. And so it was very much low key, dialed back, some spontaneous stuff, and some like prophetic kind of moments. And those were just kind of my sweet spots where I led worship and loved doing that. So I interned there for 3 years, and from there, it felt like that was like my real launch into ministry.
Mm.
And like I said, just such an encouraging community, had amazing teaching, just so much backing. And one of the things with the Wesleyan congregations or Wesleyan theology that I loved is just their openness to the Holy Spirit, and their openness to allowing the Spirit to use them and to speak through them. And so there were some really cool things that campus ministry were. I mean, they were rooted in prayer, they were rooted in Scripture, they were rooted in how do we honor the Lord. And so just the Lord was just so active in that place,
Mm-hmm.
and unlike any other place, in very specific ways too, that were really cool to witness and be a part of. And so it just felt like there's another huge season of exponential growth, greenhouse, and putting this spiritual DNA in me to then like launch me into ministry
Yeah.
in the places that I've been.
So what are
Which
what?
strangely and oddly enough,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Strangely, oddly enough.
Well, I was going to say, strangely and oddly enough, nowhere that I've gone and been in ministry has seemingly been anything like any of these places.
Hmm.
Like as far as the spiritual DNA that has been downloaded to me, and the ways that I like walk and believe in the things that I like seek the Lord for. It's interesting because the places that I've been have just been very different
Hmm.
settings and
Oh
environments
yeah.
that um so yeah, just it's crazy to think about how that happens, but it's been cool to see how the Lord has used those things to shape the environments that I've gone into as well.
Yeah. So
But
3 years at UGA Wesley. How old were you?
I would say 22, 23 when I started, 25-ish when I
Yeah.
left.
Very formational years. I mean, formative years. Did you meet Katie during that time?
Yeah, so that's a great story. So I met Katie, my wife. We were kind of one of those things, probably like you and I. Like we had been ships passing in the night. She had noticed me, her roommates worked with me as fellow interns at the UJ Wesley Foundation.
Hmm.
She was still a student at that time. We're only 9 months apart, but she was doing like a fifth year because she had changed her major
Hmm.
from math education to graphic design. And so that took a little time to get into the School of Art for her. So she was just still there, thankfully. And she hadn't moved on to greener pastures yet. And so they were still roommates. And what what happened was um, I was like really, ready for a relationship. It's ready, like I want to meet somebody, I want to get married, obviously, I want to start a family, I want to be a husband, I want to be a father. And what better place than UGA and in a people you're never going to be surrounded with this many, you know, people that you could potentially meet, and especially in ministry, like Christian girls that are following after the Lord. So I uh, naturally I got on eHarmony. I was trying to get on eHarmony. That's how desperate I was. And so I made this stupid profile, and not to knock it. I have friends that have actually met their spouse on eHarmony, and it's pretty cool. I mean, but just to be in this setting, like surely there's someone there in that area that the Lord could potentially, you know, put me together with. And so I dated two girls. It just didn't work out in my time so far. I dated two girls in Athens, and was sitting at this desk as people come into the Wesley Foundation. Everybody had like a desk duty, so you just say, "Hey, welcome." And I was on my computer, and somebody had sat down next to me, and they saw one of the emails from like the subscription to eHarmony, and they were like, "Oh, Trevor, no, you don't need to do this. Like, there's too many fish in the sea here in Athens." And so I was like, "All right, well, if you're telling me that I can't go on eHarmony and make some sort of like dating profile, then you're gonna have to help me. Like put your ears to the wind or to the ground or whatever. Like be on the lookout. Be help me out. If you hear of anything, let me know."
if you hear of, if you hear of anything, let me know. Like you're on a job search.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I need the best of the best. And
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
the Lord would really had my back in that, and was looking out for me. And she had a roommate who had just recently been in like a 2.5 year relationship, all basically through college, and was planning on getting married to this guy, and she just didn't feel a peace about it. And there were some things that kind of happened that caused them to go their separate ways. And crazy. And so she had a really like maybe like 6 to 8 months of singleness and just pursuing the Lord. And she talks about how that's like one of the best times of her life, where her focus was just so strong in the Lord, and her pursuit was just so rich. Um, and so it was right after that season, and I had done a really intensive fast that year to kind of kick off the
Hmm.
year. And um, it was cool. Like both of us were really preparing our hearts to step into that relationship. We didn't know was going to
Right.
happen, but we were both ready from the Lord, and so he set us up through um, Bethany is her roommate, and who I worked with, and they were like, "Well, Trevor, we got a roommate, and we think she might be a good fit." And I was like, "Okay, well, what's her name? What's she like?" And I looked her up on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh yeah, she's cute, and like, let's meet. Like, take me to your house. I'm gonna come to your house now." And I've been to their house before, but like I said, we were just always like ships passing in the night. So uh, I met her, and I was like, man, like, I want to marry this girl. But like, I didn't want to, I never said that to her, but I had that thought, like, I think I'm going to
Immediately?
marry this girl. Yes, like the first time that I met her,
Okay.
but it wasn't like, I don't know if that's a
No, no.
creeper thing to think, or
No,
it
I'm
was
with
just
you.
like,
You don't have to. Yeah.
but it was that feeling. And I told her that when I proposed to her, and
Hmm.
she was like, "What?" Like, she didn't believe me because I'd never told her that, but I'd had moments of struggling and doubt and things like that along the way, in our
Hmm.
relationship, and just I'm not sure if I'm ready. That I was kind of a committophobe that I real found out that I was, and so I had to struggle through my own things to get to the point where I was really ready to get married. And I'd never been in a committed long-term relationship that long, and so it was a very much a faith thing in walking that out. But she's just golden, and
Yes, she
totally,
is.
I totally don't deserve the you know upper echelon, top tier woman that I got as far as
You
Katie
do.
goes.
You do. I'd push back on that, but she is amazing, man, and she loves you. I I can only think of a handful of women that I know who love their spouse, their husbands, the way that Katie loves you. It's such a gift. Um, such a gift. Uh,
Yep.
so from your time at Wesley, what are some of your favorite stories? Any good stuff? Any funny stuff? Community wise, any good stories?
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stories. I'll tell a couple. So one of the cool things about Wesley is we're kind of creating, one of the core values of Wesley is fun.
Hmm.
And um, there's several core values, I think like four of them. And honestly, I can't think of the other three right now, but I remember
That's
fun.
okay.
And the
Yeah.
reason and the reason why fun was became one of their core values is because um, they were such a ministry that was so intense. They had a huge
Hmm.
revival, and they were all steeped in prayer, and they got a little uptight from what I can tell based on the history, and
Hmm.
and they kind of forgot that joy in the Lord part. And so that was another one of the reasons why I felt like I connected so great with Wesley and their community. But it was a college age ministry, so everybody was just getting out of college, so they were still in that, man, we want to be with our friends, we want to hang out. And so a lot of times you'd go through the uh the intern office, and there'd be interns just playing foosball, they'd be just hanging out, but they would be fostering an environment where students could come in, feel that sense of community, feel that sense of belonging and home and fun, and just, school's stressful, and I'm just going to just relax. I'm going to hang out, and I'm going to be in a Christian positive environment where all the issues that I'm facing, you know, aren't necessarily forgotten, but there's a moment of brevity, there's a moment of lightness. And so that's one of the things that I feel like in the Lord, he calls us to give our burdens to him, and he gives us that easy yoke, and his burden is light. And so to some degree, um, that's something of the sense of the environment that was there. But we did a lot of silly, stupid stuff and a lot of goofy stuff. And I remember one day, they had this like rocket launcher slingshot that you
Mm-hmm.
like take a person on either side, and then one person
Mm-hmm.
pulls it back and shoots like usually you do like water balloons in it.
Yeah.
And so we had a ton of water balloons. We had this rocket launcher thing, and we just lined people up, and we were just aiming at the people like all down. We have this big alley, and so cars are trying to come through. It's a one-way alley to get out of the parking lot, but all the interns just like ended up out there, and you had guys that were just like covering, like making sure their parts weren't destroyed and obliterated because they still wanted to procreate. But yeah, they'd be just getting like whacked in the face or like the arm, and we were just like using these human bodies as target practice, and it was amazing. And so we all kind of rotated out and got battered and bruised, and man, we're just college kids just being stupid. And um, oh my gosh, I don't know if I should share this, but
Sure, you should.
I don't even know if I don't know if I've shared this with you. I may have. Um, so I was raised in support basically to do ministry, and I went to several churches, and my home church, one of my home churches growing up, because my parents were divorced, like I said, but um, it's a small little Methodist church, and there's about 50 people there, and they supported me like $50 a month to do
Wow.
ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's awesome. So then when I was going to share like my testimony of what was going on at the Wesley Foundation, obviously all these ministry things are happening, like God's moving. But then I shared this story that I'm about to share. So there's this neighborhood in Athens, and it's called Pineview was the official name of it, but the unofficial name was called the Christian Ghetto. The Christian
Okay.
ghetto. So
Okay.
basically, like Athens, there's like 30 something thousand, maybe 40 now, 40,000 students that are living there. And this was like a neighborhood of townhouses and upper level, lower level apartments. And basically, Christians had just rented this place out. So, like, all of the people, Wesley, BCM, all these different campus ministries, and you knew, like, odds are, you could throw a rock and hit a Christian. And so it was really fun environment. And so because, we were of like minds, and um, we loved each other, and wanted to be in community, um, we could get in fights and it would be okay. And so there was this, you'll see what I mean by that when I say what I'm saying by that. But there was this group of guys, and they were like best buds, best friends, and they decided we're going to do a fight night. And so they started boxing in their basement, right? And just for fun, like these big brawly guys, we got like testosterone. We're trying to get it out of our system and
Mm-hmm.
just knock each other out a little bit, but have fun and in the process. So this developed into like a whole neighborhood wide, like gather on the hill, watch in a ring as Christians duke it out. So it was called Pineview Fight Night. And you had girls that were like going up against each other, boxing, like on somebody's back porch, and you had lights and like music just blaring. It was absolutely insane. And like while we were doing this, nobody can tell you, but it was this like adrenaline rush. And somebody was like, Trevor, you should do it. And I had just drank this whole bottle of Mountain Dew, like coming up on watching fight night. And so I was like, I had the caffeine, I had the sugar rush, and I was like, should I do this? Like, I don't fight. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, there was this group of guys, and they had this beef with this one roommate, and he was so annoying, and they wanted me to fight him. So I said, all right, I'll do it. This is just for fun. And man, like it was crazy. We got up on the back porch. They had like pool noodles around the banisters trying to like keep you from like busting your face open or something. But they had face masks and mouth guards and boxing gloves. So I'm in the rink. We go round one. Man, I'm feeling it. Like, he's not ready for me. And I
He's
like
not ready for me. I love it, Rip. He's not ready for me.
And really, no, I'm terrified. And so I got him. So I won round one based on the three, you know, there were these three girl judges on the hill. Like, I don't know if they know anything about fighting, but I won. I got him that first round. So he's so upset. Like, he's like, oh shoot, this guy just hit me. I'm not gonna take this. And so I honestly wish it was reversed, because then he came at me. Like, he was ready. He was like, I'm going to knock this guy out. So I remember he came around and like hit me on the side of the head, and I was like, whoa. I'm like, I'm not used to getting jarred around like that. And I've never really been in a fight, and he hits me, and I was like, oh shoot, like I gotta get my wits back together. And then I feel like another hit, and so I'm like, oh shoot, like what's going on? I thought I was good because I won the first round, and so he got me. And then so he won the second round, and then we had one more round, the third round, and I got my stance back. I got another good hit or two in, and but he got some good hits in on me, and so it was more of kind of like a draw almost. But I think he got like one or two more hits. I felt like, man, I just always wish I could said that I beat the guy, but no, he got me on round three, and just such a great memory. But then I shared that whole story with my church.
Why? That's why I'm sitting here this whole time. This whole time I'm sitting here laughing, and the story's great. Like, it's a little disturbing but funny. But really, in the back of my mind, I'm like, you're going to a 50-member church that is supporting you at $50 a month. And of all that you can tell them, you tell them about the Christian ghetto and fight night.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's great. Like, you just got to make those memories and live while you're alive.
That's awesome, man. Oh, that's awesome. So, all right. So you make it through Wesley. You meet Katie. Praise God. After those 3 years at Wesley, then what?
Then it felt like I got like, what's the word?
I don't know.
I got launched into ministry.
One thing I learned about you a long time ago is not to try to finish your sentence. So I don't know what the word is, Rev.
Yeah. It's where you get like, my brain. I don't know.
You got launched into ministry.
I got launched into ministry, but it was kind of this. I wasn't expecting what I was going to be going into, because the last 3 years of ministry, I mean, while it had been real ministry and really good, it was not the same kind of experience and pace as church and as like a congregation. And congregations become much more stagnant because they're not a transient ministry. They don't have new people coming in and out, and they're not used to that change. Their change is challenging in a congregation, and it's also you're wanting to create stabilization and there's tradition and those sort of things. I got launched into probably the most traditional church that I've ever been to, and Wesley is not traditional at all. Like it's contemporary music, which it's not about music to me as much as it is like, what are we doing in ministry?
Style. Yeah, just style in general. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I can vibe traditional, contemporary, whatever.
Me too.
It's not about that to me. It's about like, are we hungry for the Lord, and is there that camaraderie together of pursuing the Lord together? And so there was a lot of turmoil going on at this church at the time, a lot of differing values, a lot of political stuff, and I was just like, man, is this what ministry is all about? And I kind of hated it, to be honest. And
What was your role there?
but sorry, I got hired on as a worship leader for a contemporary
Okay.
launch.
Okay.
So they were starting a contemporary service, and that had its own set of challenges, but it was challenging, and then it got good. There was some momentum there. Then there were some pastoral and leadership changes, which kind of was very rocky. So for the next 5 years, I saw 4 different senior pastors. I served under 4 different in the matter of 5 years.
Whoa.
But in that first year, I took on a role as youth pastor as well. So I was a youth pastor. I'd worked in youth ministry kind of as a volunteer and doing small groups and connected with youth a lot throughout my walk with the Lord, especially when I got out of high school. I started to invest in that generation in middle school and high school, and felt like that was just where an area that I connected so easily and naturally, and basically because I am a child myself at heart. And so started doing that, and I was there for, I think, about 4 years in youth ministry. So about a year of leading worship, and then 4 years. And it was right around that time that I met you, started going to Asbury Seminary, and so yeah.
Went to licensing school.
Yeah.
I was licensed, and kind of then became a clergy person versus a lay person. It's wild to me. I'd never thought about that. Our paths crossed about that time. I'd never considered the fact that you served under 4 lead pastors in 5 years. That's such a reversal. Usually, one lead pastor serves 5 years and has 4 youth pastors.
Exactly.
You were a youth pastor, and you served 5 years under 4 different lead pastors. I knew that. I just don't think I'd ever connected those dots, because, we were journeying together and hanging out and talking through things. And so I knew that. I just don't guess I'd ever, combined it all. But
that was fun.
Got married, bought your first house, which is such an incredible place. You remember the COVID back porch dinners?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, what a silver lining out of a really, really crappy season. Yes.
Yeah, that was what we looked forward to.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so the world shut down, right? Nobody could gather, nobody could hang out, and we are communal people, and just really, really deep, heavy emphasis on authentic community, and everybody was isolated. And it was actually Brooke and her roommate Rachel, that started that, and gosh, it became something beautiful. It was you and Katie and Connor and Mindy, Brooke and Ray. Who else was in that? Me and the boys.
Your family.
Stacy had moved out here. We moved Stacy out here because she had to start work 4 months before, or 5 months before we came. And that was when the lockdown happened, and the boys and I were down there, and she was out here. Crazy times. But those driveway and back porch dinners were some of the most fun. Listening to the what was the deal? It was like the Heads Up game, but you had to hum a tune.
Yeah. What is it called? I don't know what it's called, but yeah, it just gives you different prompts, and we were being goofy.
Oh, it was funny. Good. Katie slayed that game, though. If she could get everybody to be quiet long enough, she could hum the tune and people would guess it.
She's so competitive when it comes to games. She doesn't play around.
Yeah.
She's like,
she's for real.
Gotta win.
And she knew that she was good at it, but she couldn't get the rest of her team to be quiet long enough so that the person guessing could hear her. And so that was the funny part for me, sitting back, and she's like, guys, and nobody's paying any attention. Everybody's humming, and of course, Brooke was cheating.
Oh yeah.
She was putting lyrics in there. Old cheater. Always. Always. I'm not going to call her a cheater, but she'll toe the line.
Yeah,
She'll
Brooke.
come right up to the
Yeah,
line.
Brooke.
Yeah. So, yeah, so then from there, what about the uncertainty of the move then from Macon to Tifton? That's a big leap of faith. I mean, so Katie's job was in Macon. You were a homeowner, really cool house, super cool neighborhood, solid job, at least salary wise. And then you got to uproot. So all your people are Macon, Gray, Jones County, Bibb County.
Yeah. Well, I would say, our people, they stretch over a vast.
Katie's
Uh,
people are Atlanta and suburbs, but your people are Middle Georgia, right?
oh yeah, yeah, like my hometown people.
That's
Yeah,
what
yeah, for
that's what I'm
sure.
talking
Like,
about. Your family. I say people, I mean
yeah.
family. Um,
Oh,
so
okay.
you're having to
Yeah.
uproot and leave all that.
Yeah. At an interesting time. Like we came down here, we had a kid. Now we have no family around. It's kind of like, dang, we should have reversed that.
Yes.
That'd have been great to have grandma and grandpa and,
Yes.
all those folks around. But yeah, so we just ventured down here. There was an open door from, just praying and just like I said, going through a revolving door of senior pastors and working with multiple different, ministry philosophies and kind of a lot. And then was just like, had this open door for this potential opportunity and prayed about it, thought about it, talked about it. And it just seemed like everything started falling into place. Like our house sold like that. That was when the market was
Mm-hmm.
booming. And it was great because we paid little to nothing for our house and the value just kind of like skyrocketed. So that was kind of cool. And then they were renovating the parsonage down here. And so when we moved down here, we basically moved into like a brand new house, which is like we would have moved into wherever, but it was just a cool little gift from the Lord to just like be able to have that space
Mm-hmm.
and um, just how everything was lining out. But, you know, I guess I wasn't really scared because I was more ready, It felt like I was ready for the next thing and ready for there to be. I'd experienced so much change in the same environment. I was ready for a change of environment.
Wow. Yeah.
So there was that, and then just kind of we've always, I guess, it was a cool place because it's a place she hasn't lived before. I hadn't lived before because I grew up in
Mm-hmm.
Macon, Gray, in that
Mm-hmm.
area. And so it was like, I guess, a season for us to go off on our own and not have any ties and just kind of explore a little bit
It
too.
forces you closer together. I know at least for the four of us moving out here, um, that it even if you're already close, it just that moving into a new place where you don't know many and it forces you together. So has it been easy or difficult to establish authentic community, like real true community there? What's that been like? How did you go about it? What role has that played in your lives, you and Katie together? What's that been like in Tifton?
Yeah, so I'd say that's kind of been an interesting thing because, like, right away when we came, there was a strong core group of young adults who were in a similar phase of life as us.
I remember, yeah.
And it was almost like we just kind of got absorbed and were surrounded by folks who were very like-minded, which I would say was a little bit, we weren't as around as many like-minded individuals at the last church because they were more, I guess, how do I say this? Theologically, we had a lot of differences.
Sure.
And so here we kind of aligned on a lot of similar theology and So that's been really, really refreshing. And then as we've stayed in Tifton and as I've gone through different seasons, kind of challenges and made different connections outside of our church, I would say that community has continued to grow and expand
Oh, good.
in breadth and then also in depth based on the people.
Good.
So it's been honestly a big blessing to go from a season where I would say I felt like more like my community was with you and Brooke and some others, even though we weren't as close in proximity.
Mm-hmm.
um, I would say it's felt more like that, but thankfully it's like closer proximity
Mm-hmm.
and we get to be around each other. Like we have a supper club now we have with some
Oh,
friends and
wow.
we'll like cook dinner for one another and just get to just hang out and just be together. And that's been really cool.
Is that weekly or monthly, or what's the rhythm on that?
So that's like once a month.
Mm-hmm.
One of the, there's three couples, that we do it with, two other couples that we do it with. So three total. And then, we just kind of explore new meals together. I think I might have texted you about the Low Country Bowl.
Oh,
We were
yeah.
hosting it
Yeah,
that one
yeah,
time,
yeah.
and so we did a Low Country Bowl. I texted like you and like five other people and honed in like I took the average of everybody's different Low Country Bowl recipes and just like made it my own, and so it like turned out pretty awesome for my first one. And
Awesome.
um, but yeah, so we've been doing that. It's just kind of a fun thing, just to kind of cooking can be stressful. So like once every 3 months, the stress is on you, and then the relaxation and the enjoyment of not having to cook is on the other two
Yeah.
couples.
Yeah,
And
and
so
it's
then
not
we
even the
we get to
cooking,
share
dude.
that.
It's people coming to your house, so you got to like everything's got to
Clean,
the
yes,
clean. It's not just
yeah,
simple cleaning. It's like getting everything right, and even if they're your friends, I mean your
yeah,
closest friends, it's still that's the headache. It's not the cooking. I mean, the cooking is what it is, but it's all the other parts and pieces.
yeah. You said it. I should have said that. And really though, yeah. I mean,
That's the
good
beautiful
Lord, we're
thing
just
about
like
outdoor
exhausted.
spaces. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about outdoor spaces, like fire pit patios, outdoor spaces. Beautiful thing about outdoor spaces.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah. So we just started a monthly gathering though. We were calling it like Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
But like this Tuesday, it's the first Tuesday of the month. We've got about 20-25 young couples and their families and stuff
Wow.
all gathering with their kids. And the last two times we got to do it in our backyard, and so that was beautiful
Hmm.
and just like so nice.
And the playground's right there, which is handy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, the kids just played outside in the backyard,
Awesome.
loved it, and just got to be. So it's a cool season.
How many of those have you done?
We've done two so far, and we've got one this in December. So we'll do like a white elephant, kind of like a fun
Awesome.
deal. So
Cool,
yeah,
man. All right. So I end every episode with the same question. That's kind of an ode to Annie F. Downs, and that sounds fun. She ends with what sounds.
Katie loves.
Oh, she's classic. Yeah, such a
She's awesome.
good
Yeah,
soul. Really, really good interviews and good people. Encouraging. I listen to her a lot when I'm walking. But so she ends every episode with what sounds fun to you. What sounds fun? Every episode except Gabe's, I have ended with how do you keep things simple? So the name of this podcast is the Keep It Simple podcast. So I'd be interested to know, knowing you like I do, how do you keep things simple?
well, I would like in an ideal world like to say that I keep things simple. I don't know if I do. I know you said somebody gave an honest answer and said I don't do a great job at keeping it simple. Yeah, I overcomplicate things sometimes.
Don't we
But
all? Don't we all, brother?
but I would say lately, um, I've been trying to keep it simple, and it's a really I'm really grateful for this. And it's only started happening as of late. is just to let the Lord do his work through me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that I meet with a guy, his name's Steve. He's in his 70s. He loves the Lord, and he was in prison at one point. And he got radically just taken by the Lord, and just has since been a disciple of Jesus and a discipler of others in the Lord. And one of the things that he keeps reminding me, and he's a big Watchman Nee fan. I don't know if you've ever read any Watchman Nee. Pretty cool stuff. You might like it, actually. But one of the things that Watchman Nee reiterates and teaches on is that our work in the Lord is to rest in the Lord and allow him to do his work through us.
Okay.
Through the Spirit and through being obedient and submitting our wills to Jesus. And I found that ministry and life is so much more simple when we just get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just get out of the way and let Jesus do what he wants to do. And usually the outcomes are much better than what, when we're wanting all that control.
Mm-hmm.
We want control of our lives. Sometimes we're tempted to control others. We have that anxious, whatever it is that comes over us. And so I've just been really trying to be as humble, as intentional, and as I guess just surrendered to Jesus. And I'd say that's how I've been trying to keep it simple, personally.
It's so simple, it's hard.
And I know, because it's our will and we want to have control.
Yeah. And to that point, I say this all the time. I don't know how many people actually listen. Control is a hoax. Control is a facade. It does not exist. If you get around somebody that claims they're in control or they're trying to control, probably need to get away from them as quickly as you possibly can. It's a lie. It's a hoax. Yeah, but that surrender is hard, man.
Yeah.
It's so simple, it's hard. The simplest things in life are most often the hardest. Yeah. Cool.
But the most rewarding.
Yeah, they are, man. So I was just sitting here thinking, listening to you and catching up with you. Hey, I miss you, dude. I miss you, man. And thankful for this time. But I was reminded of that piece of text, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And joy, like you say, you have a childlike spirit, which is not a knock. That's a compliment. And you are full of joy. It's your gift to the world, and you make me happy. Hanging out with you makes me feel better, encourages me, impresses me, moves the joy meter just a little bit up, which is, I guess, the best compliment I can give you. Thank you for your time. I know you're busy. I know you are pastoring people and loving your wife and raising sweet birdie. And so thank you for carving off time, for being vulnerable and being gracious with your time. I appreciate you, man. And I miss you, and I love you.
Yeah, same goes here, man. Love you too, and thanks for letting me come on your podcast. It's been super fun. And
Yeah. All right, see ya.
See ya.